Hey, you're you. I'm casual. This is Guns Up Mobile. This is actually tier maker, so we're gonna talk outside of the game for a little bit. Now, with the latest update, the level cap has been increased. Command center level's been increased. You've got all this new extra work to do to level up your units. Some of you, I'm sure, have been looking forward to it. Some of you have been saving up for it, but for those who don't have the resources and just kind of curious as to what they should level up going forward, uh, I thought maybe we should finally create a tier list, something that we can, you know, get some comments on, see what other people are doing, and let's start. Let's start with our rare units. Let's start with the assault right here, and I would put assault, right here in, well, I would say D. Assault is a pretty bad unit, honestly. Yeah, they can do some things. They can kind of sort of dodge sniper fire, but it doesn't really work in real life when you're trying to use them. They don't do a lot of damage. They don't have a lot of hit points. They they have a really cool mechanic that lets them that where they don't reduce their speed when moving over obstacles like barbed wire. But who cares really? They have no range. They have no hit points. It doesn't really matter what you do to them, even with their mastery mechanics, they're not great. So I would put them at D. Uh, Bombardiers, solid C. I actually like this unit a little bit. They're pretty decent at providing AoE damage. Pretty decent at providing explosive damage. They shoot relatively quickly, decent accuracy. They kind of serve the same purpose as Rocketeers. And if you're trying to overwhelm a pew, they're actually not that bad. A very fast spawn rate, although they are expensive, so you will need to invest in a discount for them. Now, everybody's favorite grunts are a D. They're a solid D. They're just terrible. They're fun for trolling. They're fun for meme defense, but they don't do what they're supposed to do. Like if you have an unlimited amount of them, they could do tons of damage, but they could also get erased by a strong, gust of wind. So I wouldn't recommend doing anything with them other than for a gag, honestly. And medics, I think they're a solid B. Uh, they're the only rare unit that really works very well. They can heal with their unique equipment. They can overheal, which increases a unit's hit points if they're being healed essentially out of combat. They're given a chance to heal over their maximum hit points. They can have extra hit points, which is fantastic. It's good on defense. You can heal your units, put one of these medics in a defensive position, and heal around them. Again, decent unit. It's not great. It's not fantastic. It's not one of those units that it's a priority, but they're pretty good. Bounty hunters are. I'm gonna put them in A for a second. I think they're just a solid A all around. Very good unit. Does a lot of pretty important things poorly, and does one very specific thing, actually two very specific things really well. So they don't die right away when you hit them with lethal damage. And the other thing is they spawn very quickly out of tents. So you could just spam them like crazy on defense, and they can hold their own. And they can hold back the tide of incoming enemies. They're also pretty good against snipers. So solid A. They're like a good backbone to any army. If you have them, if you have their fourth skill unlocked, yeah, they're good. But they're solid A. They're not gonna win games for you. They're gonna do well for you, and they're gonna be very useful for you. But they're not going to win the matches for you. Engineer, solid S. They're good on offense. They're good on defense. They keep buildings from being destroyed. They repair buildings. They reduce the damage on buildings. They reduce the damage on your vehicles, and they repair your vehicles, which is even cooler, especially when you're in a situation where your transport truck's being damaged. They can actually heal your transport truck, and they can prevent it from being destroyed by random damage. So very, very useful. They're good as veterans. They're good as spawns. They're good as defense. They're good in tents. Like, look, they're the best unit probably right now in the game. So they're an obvious S. They should be a priority for you. Yeah, I don't really see why not, even if you're not using them as your primary defense, because you put them in defensive structures and they will heal your buildings. Again, they will prevent your buildings from being one shot by rockets. So yeah, really, really good unit. You could put them on defense and offense with the same equipment. Honestly, there's nothing they can't do. Flamers, they're oh gosh, C, probably C. They have hit points. That's great. They can set things on fire, which is okay, and that's pretty much it. They're good with fangs, I guess, on defense, but with trailblazers, they're essentially free heals for for the opponent's trailblazers. They stun, which is phenomenal. They can reduce, they can suppress, which reduces the opponent's attack. But again, they're free heals for the opponent's trailblazers. They're also free suppression for your opponents because they can set your own troops on fire. They're just a hassle. And as far as on offense goes, they have very long range, so they stand very far back. In fact, they're within range of your DPS units sometimes, so they're not really providing a lot of defense. They're not providing much front line for your troops. So I rate them honestly very poorly. If you really, really love them, I'm sure you'll use them and you're not going to pay attention to what I'm saying. If you don't love them, I would the hard pass on these guys unless you love the gameplay. Honestly, they're just really, really bad. I think there's a lot of negatives to them, and I can't rate them very highly. I love them, but I don't want to use them. MGs solid B. Um, B. Yeah, I don't think they're an A. I don't think they have enough hit points to be A. I don't think they have enough range to be A. Honestly, if they had range and hit points, they'd be S. But they're just kind of B. Uh, their fire rate is low, but their damage is high. And yeah, you can get some good stuff out of them. But again, their hit points are very low and they're susceptible to explosive damage and piercing damage. So bring them at your own risk. They're very expensive. Their spawn cooldown's kind of long. Again, you can bring them on offense, but you're not going to get a lot of them out, and you're going to cost yourself because that's energy you're not spending on other units you could be spawning. You're just spawning these guys. Yeah, I don't really have. I wish they were better, but they're not. Rangers, they're D. I don't care what your opinion is. They're D. They don't do any. They don't do offense very well. They don't do defense very well. They're short range, slow fire. The grenades don't really work. They only work against buildings, so on defense they're just completely useless. You can't even get kernels to make them throw grenades at units, so it's bad. I mean, you can overwhelm a pew with them, but you can overwhelm a pew with bombardiers. You can overwhelm a pew with grenadiers, and they're just a rare. So, they throw grenades all the time, as opposed to just like every once in a while when they feel like it. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Rangers are bad. They're just bad. They don't work even with their unique equipment. They just throw more useless grenades. In fact, with their regular fire, they can do more damage to a building than they can with their grenades. They will throw the grenades and then they will start shooting and they will kill the building faster with their shooting than before the grenades land. They're just completely useless. Rocketeers, A. Yeah, yeah, solid A. They're not S because of pews. They can't really avoid pews. They're not very good at it. I mean, yes, you can get a whole bunch of them together and they can overwhelm a pew, but they're better higher priority targets than a pew. So you will generally want to attack units with them, and they're very good at that. They're very good at causing a lot of collateral damage. The game's kind of pushing towards more accuracy with these guys, and what you don't want actually on Rocketeers is accuracy. You want just massive collateral damage, and the game's just pushing accuracy at you right now. So I'm just gonna put them in A. I like them. I use them for certain situations. I don't think they're priority unit. Uh, C. Sergeants are about a C. They're good. They're useful. They're kind of like medic in terms of usefulness, I guess. They do something really well. They're actually kind of useful for your team, but um, I don't feel like I need to bring them anymore. No, I don't feel like they're incredibly useful to me anymore. So I just don't bring them. And I when I do, I find that I'm lacking some DPS on my team or some utility on my team. So they're pretty much with Grenadiers for me. They're not doing what I really need them to do. Shock Troopers, I wish they were better. They're kind of fun on defense. You could just load up your defense with them, and then supposedly you'll get something out of it. But I haven't. Um, they're just kind of they're just kind of there. They're basically assault, but if you mass more of them, they do more damage. Baseline, they don't. They're actually really bad in terms of damage. They're basically assaults by themselves, but if you can get a whole bunch of them together with masteries and kernels and all that other stuff, you can get some decent damage out of them. They're just not overwhelmingly amazing as far as I'm concerned. It's just getting enough of them out of your time. Maybe like now, maybe I can kind of get more out of them now, especially with level 28 tens. I get them to spawn fast enough that I don't feel the need to put coffee on them. I'm not there yet, but I don't feel like I need to prioritize this unit now or ever. Honestly, I don't find them fun. I don't use them on offense at all because like swarmer units like these, like grunts and assault and shock troopers. Swarmer units require that you load up on them, and they don't have enough hit points to really do the job that you're looking for. They also require the use of a lot of your army's maximum count. So just to get a whole bunch of nobodies out there that aren't going to do a lot of damage and aren't going to take a lot of hits for a very expensive cost, I don't see the benefit with these guys. So sniper, they're a C. I might put them in a B, maybe. I think some people would like sniper units. I think sniper units are okay. I'm talking about in general sniper units. If you like sniper units, use them. Go ahead. I think that now with the equipment being the way it is, you can probably get them to fire a lot faster and do a lot more damage and be way more useful than they used to be. I just don't like them. I don't like that they're slow. I don't like the slow gameplay. I don't use them on offense. That's pretty much it. Okay, we are done with rares. We're done with epics. Let's talk about some legendaries. Bombardier, easy S, tons of damage, tons of fire rate. Yeah, they're not accurate, but you get a whole bunch of them together, and they're very cheap. Get a whole bunch of them together with double tap and greater attack speed, and you will absolutely overwhelm anything. You will overwhelm Trailblazers with these guys. They're just they're just really good. They do everything long range, fast fire, lots of damage. How do you go wrong with that? They complement any team. Do I use them against Trailblazers? No, I don't use them. I try not to use them against Trailblazers. Sometimes I forget to switch them out. But they do heal the Trailblazers, but they also provide vulnerability debuff, so they do some of that. They make it easier for you to also kill the Trailblazers, and the amount of damage they do will overwhelm the healing as well. It's just not optimal, but they are easy S, fantastic unit. They're good in all modes. Maybe not defense. I've never really seen them on defense. Really good. Oh, chemist, where will you go? I would say B. B is a good place for a chemist. They're just somewhere in the middle. They're really good if you get their cough up to maximum. They break all the replays. They're decent at stymieing units. If you have a stall defense, they'll be much higher on this list. I don't have a stall defense like this. I don't really like using them. And I never liked them because they were just so obnoxiously annoying. They're still obnoxiously annoying, just not as obnoxiously annoying as they used to be. So I would say somewhere B. I mean, they're very much running in the middle. If you like them, put them higher on your priority list. Kernels, they are an S unit. They're an S unit. I don't know for the purpose of leveling them up if they should be on the S area or A, just because you don't need to level them all that much. I'm gonna put them on S just because they're so incredibly useful in almost every situation that there isn't really a reason not to have them on your team on offense or defense. Uh, yeah, I would. I'm gonna put them down to A just because they're not perfect in every situation. They just do a couple of things amazingly well, just kind of like the bounty hunter. They do a couple of things amazingly well, and so they're absolutely top tier unit that is very useful for all your teams. Commando, they are an S unit. I hate them, but they're an S unit. They do so much damage, especially in veteran. A 5-star veteran commando will just shred the hell out of everything. If you're going to build an offense around them, don't build an offense around them with engineers. Engineers fire a lot faster, so they can kill the enemy before the commandos start to fire, and that can just throw your timing off. But commandos on their own fire pretty quickly, do tons and tons of damage. They actually have very good accuracy, believe it or not. So you can absolutely erase entire defenses with them. They're crazy. Javeliners, B. I think they're basically like a chemist. They're awful. As far as I'm concerned, I think they're awful in every single aspect. I would love to put them in D, but they're too good to put in D. They do some things very well. They have very long range. They're just cheap, easy, do damage to buildings. But if you're going up against like a defensive Trailblazers or a defensive Bounty Hunters, they're not going to really do what you want them to do, except take out a couple of buildings maybe, or do some focus fire. Again, you can just focus fire with bombardiers, and that'll probably be better. What they're good at is just kind of letting them do their own thing and letting them take out buildings. But if your opponent's units are constantly moving ahead of the buildings, they're going to target the units, and that's not really optimal for them. So I put them there. One of the main reasons I don't like them is because when you use focus fire, they will destroy the building that you're focus firing on, which is you're thinking like that's fantastic. But if your plan was I'm going to take my commando and I'm going to target something in the back and just mow everything down on the way for the entire duration of the focus fire, what the javeliners are going to do is they're going to fire a couple of rockets, destroy that thing, and then the commandos have to stop before the focus fire duration ends and basically not kill anyone. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with that. I think they're just very anti-specific mechanics. I cannot put them at A. Mad scientists, solid A. They're very good on many different situations. They're good on offense. They could push. They could push really hard. They're good on defense. They can kind of stall your opponent. They can get their their zombies inside your opponent's troop base, and it makes them excuse me, it makes them fight the zombies instead of fighting you. And if you have explosive zombies, you can have them explode in the middle of the opponent's formation. And yeah, really really good unit. Has a very very specific function of stalling or pushing. Like they're really good against a bounty hunter base because they force the bounty hunters to constantly pull up short. The next spawn of bounty hunters will pull up short, and so then you throw the zombies the next you know wave of bounty hunters, and then the next wave of bounty hunters pull up short, and so you just constantly keep pushing. Every time you destroy a wave and you throw the next set of zombies, you're pushing the next spawn of bounty hunters further and further back, closer and closer to their outpost. That's what you want, and so they're very very good at that. Their damage actually is surprisingly good if you just go pure damage on these ladies. They can do individually, like they can do like mercenary damage 1-on-1. Like their damage actually is incredible, but it's suboptimal to build them that way because they have very slow spawn cooldown. They have very they're pretty expensive at first, so cost basis wise, you wouldn't trade them for mercenaries. So yeah, they're good. They're definitely an A. And speaking of mercenaries, here's another A. They're a really good unit, easy to build. I mean, yeah, they kind of need the incendiary rounds. It's not a must, but it's very very good for them to have incendiary rounds. It builds off of like all their mechanics build off of essentially having incendiary rounds or throwing the Molotovs. And the game right now is the next squad bonus is increased ammo, which I hate because it's going to throw off their firing timing more so than the Molotov cocktails already do. So I'm not a fan, but again, really good unit. They're great in every single mode. I use them in every single mode: zombie mode, um, prison break, defense. They're fantastic. Tons and tons of damage coming out of these guys all the time. Riot, about the same too. They're a really good team with bounty hunters on offense, providing that front line, secondary front line. They stun. They're great at doing the zombie community challenges. Incredibly useful unit. The more hit points they have, the better they are. It doesn't affect their stun, but it's a really good hit points thing. They're big, they're beefy, they run to the front. What's not to like about them? Yeah, they're kind of slow on spawn. They're only spawn one guy. Still like them though. I still have very high priority. I would rather have them than anything that I've so far put below them. So yeah, the stun's really useful on offense. It's really useful in a lot of different places. Scout, excuse me, Scout, right there. A, again, A is a really great uh, row for a lot of stuff. These guys, scouts do tons of damage. They have an area buff. They're cheap. Their spawn cooldowns pretty fast. They apply vulnerability. Their unique unique item gives them a chance to crit. They're a great damage unit. I mean, their damage is up there with sharpshooters actually. So why not? Really, and they're cheap. I mentioned they're cheap, so they can fill up any loadout. They can complement. They make the kernels fire faster. The aura of the kernels focus fire ability makes them larger. They make all the units fire from longer range, so you can effectively get a range advantage over your opponents. They're good against Flamethrowers are good against chemists. They're good against trailblazers. They just have a lot of pluses. They're a great unit to switch in and out of your loadout if you really need to do that. Sharpshooters, I will put here. They're somewhere between right now the scouts and snipers. I think they're better than snipers no matter what because they fire so much faster. They do tons of damage. They crit. Double tap doesn't really work for them. It does work for snipers. It doesn't work for sharpshooters, but they have a whole bunch of other damage that supersedes it. They fire faster, so they move faster. They don't just get like stuck in the back, aiming forever, firing and then reloading forever. So I definitely think the sharpshooters are a little bit higher on the list than snipers are. I don't think they're as good as scouts because they don't really offer that much for the team. They're just a really good DPS unit. That's pretty much it. Right now, Trailblazers can be built with a lot of hit points. They can be built with secondary item attributes that increase their pierce resistance. You can have Trailblazers mixed up with Riot, which are really good defense against sharpshooters. You can have Trailblazers mixed up with Mad Scientists. Mad Scientists don't do anything on their own, but they do throw a lot of zombies, and the zombies will eat all the sharpshooter damage. They'll effectively like temporary hit points for your entire team. So there's ways to stymie pierce dealing damage dealers. It's kind of hard to actually stymie the sharpshooters because they do so much damage, but it's still possible to stymie them, even if you're not using a pure bounty hunter riot loadout on your offense, which you could. So another reason, again, the reason that the scout stays in A is because they actually provide a lot of benefits for the team beyond just the damage, whereas the sharpshooters just the damage, and they're very expensive no matter what as well. So weigh that, comparatively speaking, you're going to pay a lot for that sharpshooter that might not do all that well for your team, versus you're going to pay very little for the scout that's going to do a lot of other things for your team beyond just providing the pierce damage. I would pick the scout. Surgeon C, I don't know what they do aside from being a liability. That's basically how I look at them. They run in the front. They put themselves in harm's way. So effectively, it's like 2 kills to your opponent for the price of 1, or 3 if you raise the guy and then get killed right away again. It's not a good mechanic. I'm not a big fan of it. They do have a lot of hit points. They actually do surprisingly lots of damage, way more than medics. It's just not a mechanic that I really think works very well. They also leave a lot of your guys, like your guys will lay there and bleed out on the field before disappearing for the duration of the bleed out duration for the surgeon. And it also means that if you're already at your unit cap for that raid, you can't spawn any more guys until the guys you already have bleeding out bleed out, which is awful, because you can be in a situation where, like, yeah, you could be reinforcing that front line over and over again all you want, but you can't because all your guys, like all your 36 guys, are currently bleeding out and you can't spawn anything. And the opponent's just pushing up the field, and they're getting towards your truck and they're shooting at your transport truck, and your guys are still bleeding out, so you can't spawn anything. I don't like this mechanic. I don't like surgeons. Sorry, guys. And Trailblazers, easy S tier unit. They're very good. I just realized I've been recording the save download button, but that's fine. Yeah, Trailblazers, they're really good. They remove traps. They remove barbed wire. They explode barrels. They take tons of hits. They heal, essentially heal themselves doing these things. If the opponent has fire damage, if the opponent has incendiary rounds, they get healed. They're cheap. They spawn 3. With volunteer badges, they spawn 6. How do you not like that? Their damage is actually pretty decent, even without any items. So, it's definitely better than bounty hunters. Their actual spawn time on defense, I think, is slightly I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it's actually lower than bounty hunters, but it's really close. This is within like a second of bounty hunters, so you can definitely spam trailblazers on defense if you wanted to. I've been up against some of these trailblazer spamming bases, and they're a nightmare. They just don't stop coming. You shoot them, you kill them, but they're just there again. It's like they regenerate. It's so weird. Yeah, that's my tier list. I think if you're gonna look for units that you definitely need to upgrade from the beginning, here's a list of 4 that's really useful. Definitely pick some units from A as well, because these S tier units, aside from the Trailblazer, these are really offensive units. I run engineers and bombardiers in my offense. I actually ran all 4 of these units plus the colonel in my offense before. They work all really pretty well together, actually. Sometimes I swap in the MG for the commando because the MG fires better than the commando. I think there's no wind up, so they just fire better sustain. They don't have to reload all the time. So, but this S tier, you can just make a team out of that effectively, and then you can have this A tier that you just swap in and out based on your needs. That to me sounds like a good plan. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any complaints, if you got any ideas or opinions on what should be rated what. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you.